Okay, so the topic we're covering today, and thank you for having us, is on-chain versus off-chain, and really, as it relates to not only compute but documentation. And just real quick, my name again is Todd Smith, and I am the founder CEO of KYG Trade. KYG stands for Know Your Goods, which is a spin on Know Your Customer. And both Patrick and I are looking very forward to sharing our use case with you today. Patrick, quick intro on your side.
Sure. I'm the chairman and CEO of Inveniam. We are focused on providing proof of state and proof of value of a document or an asset and connecting that to digital evidence of ownership or a token. And we're excited to be partners with Todd in providing this type of evidence for goods as they cross borders.
Thanks, Patrick. And you'll see how the two of us come together here as we go through these slides. In terms of KYG Trade, what we're addressing is a exponential growth in importations of small parcel shipments. So historically, most importations into the United States came in big containers. And as you can see on the slide here, the number of express consignment shipments, which are DHL packages, FedEx packages, has just grown exponentially, because of the rise of e-commerce platforms like Amazon, but also Alibaba, Walmart.com, and a host of others. And the governments around the world are wanting more information and visibility into what is contained in these small express consignment shipments. Historically, somebody sending a express consignment shipment would have an airway bill that got stuck on the box, and they would have a description that just said, auto parts. What is happening now is that the customs authorities, including the U.S., are going to require an HTS code in a country of origin to give them greater specificity into the what's in the box. And in order to determine HTS code country of origin, what I call a trade attestation, there's just a lot of effort that's involved in getting your hands around the what is the product, what is it made of. You might need a bill of materials, and you might need a whole host of supporting documentation. And when I say you, the importer is responsible for knowing this and reporting the correct HTS code and country of origin, what I call trade attestations, to the customs authorities. And in order to make a determination as to what those are, you need to get your hands on facts related to the product. And as you see here in the bottom of your screen, the types of information are bills of materials, cost worksheets, images, even intellectual property rights. I mean, these are all things that somebody with a trade compliance, import-export compliance background needs in order to determine what is the right and what is the correct HTS code. So KYG Trade is going to facilitate the ability to review what I call product attributes that are necessary in order to make these trade attestations. And we're linking the product code, which shows up in the form of a barcode on most products, such as a G10, which stands for Global Trade Identification Number, or any other type of product code, to a KYG identifier, which will then link to off-chain source documentation that you see here. And the type, again, of information, the way it would be viewed would be product attributes that the owner of the product, brand owner, whether it's a brand owner or a manufacturer, somebody who intimately involved in the manufacture of the product, will need to make this information available on a permission basis to the U.S. government, customs authorities, or counterparties, buyers of the product. And indeed, at some point, even the end customer themselves may want to look at sustainability and traceability back through the supply chain. So, a big question is, how do you do that? How does the data owner make information available on a permission basis, to counterparties, and do it in a way where the counterparty can trust that the individual or entity who provided that information is the right entity, that it's not been that this information hasn't been provided by somebody else who isn't the exact source of the bill of materials for the production of a product, so that there's trust and you can rely on the data that's being made available through our technology. And the way KYG Trade is going to enable that to happen is by partnering with Inveniam. And so Inveniam, also a very interesting use case that's not in the global trade import-export space, but in the fixed assets capital markets space. And so I'm going to turn it over to Patrick so he can tell you a little bit about what they're doing in that environment, but we're basically going to leverage that same tool set into the KYG Trade platform. Patrick?
Sure. Hey, thanks so much, Todd. So what we do is, in a distributed data economy, right, where people want to control their own data, the data has value, it can be used for their benefit or against them, and they want to control that data. Because in the past, when they've shared that data with large databases, it's been used, misused, and abused. And so in a distributed data economy where more and more people want to keep the data on their own assets to themselves, you need a mechanism in order to communicate trust in that data when you are given access to it, right? So think of data-rich, low-frequency trading assets, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum, we know exactly what those things are when that token, when that crypto trades. You don't need to describe it. When an office building trades, you need to know whether or not a meteor hit it yesterday, or whether there was a fire in it, or if a building across the street sold. And so the ability to prove the state, so provide proof of state of that asset, meaning what condition is it in, whether it's maintenance of mechanical systems, elevator usage, key fob data, foot traffic, motion activated, lighting, any of those things, lease payments, lease management. How can you prove not only the proof of state of the data, but that collectively that becomes proof of state of the asset, and then that from there you can provide proof of value of the asset. And if it's a real asset that has been digitally dematerialized into a token, then you can connect that to the token so it can trade. And so what we do is we facilitate in this environment the ability for people to use our software to credential that data. And so we run a SHA-256 to create a fingerprint of that document. We index that data, we field that data, we validate it with asynchronous data. We allow the asset owner to create more of that. And then what we do is we create the ability for somebody to come into a data room that is permeable on a permissioned basis and see, and it's permeable at the level of the data room on an individual file, a folder, or the entire data repository. And they can see there's no data in the data room. It's just a directory with pointers all the way back to a series of underlying data systems, right? So, the data for an office building or a private equity asset can be in a dozen or more data repositories. So we have pointers back there. And what we do is, again, we have those pointers so you know where the data is. We have the hash so that it hasn't been altered since the moment it was created. We can give you a provenance on who's accessed it, who's updated it, with further naming conventions. And then we've got that role-based access control to make sure that only the right people see the right documents. And then lastly, what we do is we apply very basic role-based access control. So on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, we're pulling the most recent version of that data, so that data room is always up to date. But the point is, no data ever leaves that private asset owner's data systems. All we've done is commute trust in the data on chain, right? So we made it observable through role-based access control. We commuted trust through those hashes and seeing that hash anchored in the payload of a block 100 days ago, 500 days ago, et cetera, right? And then we related it to other pieces of data so that people can create a probabilistic determination of the truth of that assertion that's on that data. And so what we're doing is we are making this data high functioning, trustable, observable, and then lastly, we make it plug and play, independent of network system or application. And all of that is done making it functional with all sorts of different systems in a federated data environment that is held together where the trust and the relationships are maintained through pointers and hashes that are in the payload of a block so that we can commute that trust. And so that's what we do in order to drive things like valuation, automated investment calculation, automated capital calls on the real estate and private equity side. But it provides the perfect layer for Todd to deliver exactly what he's doing with Know Your Goods. Todd, was that a good description?
Yeah, it was great. Thank you, Patrick. And to bring it back into the world, if you will, the universe of global trade, just to give you an idea of scale, there in terms of value globally, there are close to 20 trillion in goods are traded around the world. This physical good crossing the border. And what this technology is allowing us to do is change the way counterparties in the supply chain exchange information about the characteristics of a product. I mean, today there are lots of systems that will transmit information about a product, such as the SKU, as I showed earlier, the dimensions, the value, the buyer's name, the seller's name, and then when you get into trade compliance, things like the tariff code, the country of origin, the value, and other attestations like forced labor. But in terms of the underlying information about the product that is needed in order to make those determinations, today there is no system. It's email and PDF. And that includes when a customs official wants to know if the importer is saying this product qualifies for a free trade agreement, USMCA, for example, the customs authorities are going to take it at face value, but they have 5 years to audit whether that was an accurate claim or not. And today what they do, state of the art, is they send an email and a PDF with a list of questions about the product, and you have hops going all the way back the supply chain, emails and PDFs, give me bills of material, give me product descriptions. And think about that, for 20 trillion in trade, when compliance managers within large companies that are and small merchants that are passing products need underlying product information, it's email and PDFs. And so we're real excited to be working with Inveniam, who has already figured out how to make this underlying source data available on a permission basis without the data owner having to make copies and upload it into some central database somewhere. Those days are gone. And so not only are we going to be able to make information available, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, about this, but it's not only a document within a data room, but it's what I call atomic field level data within a document. So we don't necessarily have to make the entire bill of materials available. We can make portions of a bill of material available based on the permission access that the data owner provides.
That's exactly right.
So, and then in terms of future users, of the same data, because every time somebody imports the same product, if it's a Nike tennis shoe, that Nike tennis shoe could be imported, by 10 different importers, and all 10 importers need to know the same information about the product in order to determine the HTS code, the country of origin, et cetera. Sometimes they'll ask the manufacturer who may provide that information to the importer, but sometimes the manufacturer doesn't even know because they're manufacturing a product offshore and they may not know US rules and regulations. So once some professional in the US has gone in and evaluated the data and made a determination on HTS code, country of origin, et cetera, future importers of that very same product will be able to look up that information by entering in the SKU or the barcode for the product on a registry. And then if they themselves need access to underlying information to, further validate or get comfortable, with the findings that have been made available, they can ask the data owner for permission to access that information. And that, my friends, is our 15-minute timer.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Out there, but all of that information, we're gonna be able to record the blocks on a blockchain for future use and viewing. So the same importer or a different importer of the same product doesn't have to repeat the process over and over again. Thank you. I guess the last slide is, since I understand we don't have a breakout, if you want to reach out to either Patrick or myself, our contact information is here.
Yes, thank you, Todd and Patrick. Thank you so much for this solid presentation.